It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back. It is a Tuesday morning on your Feel Good Breakfast Show. Now, here's a very shocking statistic for you as a South African. According to the World Health Organization, South Africa sits at the top 20 highest alcohol-consuming nations in the world. And even more shocking than that is the fact that 60% of South African teens have gotten drunk. In fact, 30% of them have done so at school or during work time before the age of 18. And that's why Dr. Darren Green is here to clean up the table.
Clean up the table.
Round the empties.
Round the empties.
Dr. Darren, we're glad to have you here. We're glad.
I noticed a little glint in your eye there when we were talking about kids drinking at school. We were all young once. We all loved to party at some point. Is alcohol all bad? Is it in moderation all right to drink? We don't want to completely bash it because it is so readily available. There are economies that rest on it.
Of course.
Where do we sit here? Is one drink all right?
Yeah. So,
how do you feel?
Yeah, so what's happening is the science is coming up with newer and newer studies showing us that the benefits of using alcohol are becoming less and less the more we delve into it and the more we study it in detail.
Wow.
So obviously what we used to term as moderate drinking being okay, as being 2 units a day, is now showing that it actually causes damage and puts you at risk for certain health problems, and that's what's concerning. The issue is just, why are our stats looking the way they are?
Yeah, when we talk about health issues, what health issues are we talking about that could potentially...
You mean from alcoholism?
Yeah.
So addiction is the first one.
Of course.
So,
dead brain cells.
Yeah, dead brain cells. Not knowing your family history when it comes to your parents, grandparents' use of alcohol is also something we need to look at, because your chances of becoming an alcoholic and becoming addicted to alcohol are almost more than half if you have a relative, specifically a father or grandfather that has as well.
So what is it about alcohol that is addictive?
Yeah, so it's all about how it affects the brain. So alcohol obviously is metabolized in the liver, so it gets absorbed through the stomach. It uses various nutrients, like thiamine is one of the vitamins used. And as the enzymes of the liver convert alcohol into acetaldehyde, which is a subtype, the chemical structure takes off the hydrogen ions, it crosses the barriers, and as that moves to the different organ systems, obviously, it has effects on those cellular components. When it goes to the brain, it affects the neurotransmitters. That's the effect of it being a downer. We spoke about addiction last week, about uppers and downers.
Yes.
So addiction to alcohol specifically, it's a downer. In other words, it depresses the nervous system a little bit. It slows the nervous system down. So, compared to cocaine and things like that up you and give you energy and make you alert and hyper, alcohol helps you. If you're anxious and you are already in a hyper state, often people use it as a crutch to bring them down so that they can function normally, have less social anxiety, engage, and so forth.
A spiral.
And then they get used to the acceptance around that. And what happens is they're getting a reward, obviously, of the social interaction and the fact that they're not so stressed and anxious anymore. And that ends up playing off. Then that reward cycle then spins out. And then you eventually don't develop the skills you need to cope without the alcohol.
Oh, we're going to continue this chat. We'd love to hear from you. 021 430 9881. I want to find out from the doc in a moment what would happen to me if I drank 100% alcohol. What do you think about that?
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Wow, we're having very deep discussions here with Dr. Darren Green. We're talking about understanding alcohol, getting into the aspects of alcoholism. If you have any questions to ask about our medical topic this morning, give us a call on 021 430 9881. Graham, you asked a very interesting question before we left.
What would happen to me, or anyone, who drank 100% alcohol? Would you die?
Drop to the floor, no. So 100% alcohol is neat. I mean, it has serious effects, toxic effects on both the nervous system, the cardiovascular system, and of course, obviously, your digestive system. If you think about something like some of the rums that are like 80%, the worst ones, or the highest concentration, it's not about the percentage, it's about how much of that is in what you're drinking with, and what you're drinking it with. If there's sugar involved as well, in combination with that alcohol, changes the metabolic profile in the liver as well, in terms of the enzymes involved and the nutrients. So 100% alcohol would burn your stomach, firstly. If they often with antacids show you what acid does. If you pour it onto a little cloth, something like that. So you cause a gastritis, red, angry blood vessels on the surface of the stomach. You can then lead to, with the liver metabolism, pancreatitis, because the pancreas is busy trying to also help with the digestion of that and pump out a lot of enzymes in the breakdown of the molecule itself. And then, of course, your gastrointestinal tract. You can imagine how that burns the inner lining of the tube and causes then, obviously, dire effects of absorption of foodstuffs and nutrients down the line. Notwithstanding, obviously, the central effects of that alcohol going to the brain
Straight
and what
to
happens
your
there.
head,
yeah.
Intoxication.
So it's
and
poison.
that kind of thing. Yeah.
The higher the volume, the more poisonous,
Correct.
basically.
Can we then deduce from that the quality of alcohol that you drink does make a difference in the way that your body metabolizes it? For instance, you know, you have people that brew their own wit blitz daar agter in die
Unfiltered.
in die kombuis daar
Unfiltered
agter.
brew, yes.
So would that make a difference?
It can, of course, make a difference because you must understand there are yeasts involved, there's sulfites involved, and combining those factors affect, obviously, the effect that you're going to get. You must remember that there are also certain things that you can't control when you're brewing that people might add just for flavor or taste, and that all changes the body's makeup as to how it sees the alcohol molecule. Remember, you get methylated spirits, you get methanol, which they use in laboratories and stuff like that. People think it's all the same because they want the same effect and fix.
Well, they're looking for the fix as quickly
and
as
they don't
possible.
know about the irreversible damage that happens to the nerves and cells.
You know, I think one glaring question for me is how much is too much? When do you become an alcoholic in this culture of drinking?
And that's a very good question. I mean, there are beautiful tools out there that help you judge whether you should actually consider seeking help or amend your behavior around alcohol. And we call it the CAGE criteria, which is quite easy. Each letter stands for something.
Okay.
And I'll run through them quickly. The C is for, have you ever felt you need to cut down on your alcohol intake? A, does it anger you when anyone else says you need to cut down? The G is, do you ever feel guilty that you are drinking too much? And the fourth one is, do you ever need an eye-opener? In other words, in the morning, when you wake up.
A regmaker.
That's it, a regmakertjie. So that's what people need to understand. And if you answer yes to 3 of those questions, or even 2, you really need to consider your behavior around alcohol, what you're using it as, what the role it plays in your life. Because we all have crutches. And the point is to learn how to cope without things that have dire consequences on your family life, your budget, your health, etc. So.
Always so insightful
Brilliant.
having you
Cage.
here. Looking forward to continuing this conversation with Dr. Green after the break. Do stay tuned and give us a call on 0214 309 881 should you have any questions.
Only you can make my day.
All right, we're back again on the hot seat with Dr. Green. We're talking about understanding alcohol, alcoholism, and all the things that come around with it. Our numbers, our line is open, 0214 309 881. We've got Wynand calling us from Nelspruit. Sommer net voor die in die Bosfees. Wynand, how are you?
Good in yourself.
Very, very good. Thanks so much for the call. What is your question or your comment?
I want to quickly find out, on a medical term, binge drinking, is it just as dangerous as, everyday drinking? How would you define binge drinking?
Yeah,
Brilliant
Thanks,
question.
Great question. So binge drinking is when you can't pull up the handbrake. In other words, you can't have and limit yourself to just 1 or 2 drinks socially with friends around a braai. That six-pack is there, and that six-pack will get finished within a certain period of time, and then you always run out of alcohol. So binge drinking obviously affects people differently according to their genetics. Some people need 2 drinks and they're on the floor. Other people obviously can handle a lot more alcohol. Some people don't feel the effects of alcohol due to certain genetic mutations, but that doesn't mean it's not poisoning the rest of your system and the other systems. So binge drinking obviously has just as much as an effect as chronic small amounts of drinking. So what we look at are medical problems like in diabetics and in coronary heart, people with established heart disease. That's where the whole debate came out and the initial science of showing the benefit of having a unit or a glass of red Bordeaux blend once a day, a glass of red.
Antioxidants.
The antioxidants, the resveratrol in the skin of the grape, etc., having an effect on the inflammation in the heart and so forth. What's happened now, obviously, we're seeing that even as little as 2 units a day are putting people at risk for certain cancers, things like breast cancer, colorectal cancer, and even prostate cancer. And that's notwithstanding, obviously, things like the central obesity associated with a biertjie a dag. So you must remember that even chronic slow drinking amounts obviously have dire medical effects, but binge drinking obviously gives you acute pancreatitis and alcohol poisoning and affects your nervous system adversely. If you look at the brain of someone that's had lots of alcohol in their lifetime, it actually shrinks.
Oh, wow.
So you have what's called
word.
wasting or brain atrophy from obviously someone that drinks a lot of alcohol and someone that doesn't.
Wow. Vainan, thank you so much for that question.
Yeah,
Really
brilliant,
opened up
brilliant
many,
question.
many doors there.
Young people, it's a different question as opposed to adults who might be drinking for their own pressures. Often when you're dealing with young people, and I don't want to use it as a cliche, peer pressure is very real when it comes to alcohol. Why do we see the kind of ridiculous statistics we do with South African school children?
Yeah, the question is, are our children at school, firstly, because we mentioned that they drink at school even.
Yeah.
And I mean, that just means that the school system is not vigilant enough to pick it up. Kids are slipping things like cough mixture, for example, and taking bottles and squeegee bottles to the classroom. We need to catch a wake-up. Parents need to wake up, teachers also, and be aware of the problem. But the reason for it there is it's normally a crutch, and people are using it as a crutch for something. Children drink often sometimes because it's considered risk behavior.
To be naughty.
To be naughty,
I was
to
a naughty
rebel,
kid and
to get away with it.
Yeah, but that's exactly
You know,
it.
and we need to teach them that, you know, in terms of their lifestyle and acceptance and self-image, they don't need to get away with things for us to recognize them as individuals with their own mindset.
You talk about teaching kids things, and some parents believe that, you know, if it's around a dinner table and you let your child have a glass of wine at a certain age,
So
it's
they're
okay
aware
because
of it.
you know, and they're in a protected environment. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good to be said about that. So some people are like horses held back, waiting for that 18, that's the 18 drinking age, for example, because they've never been exposed to responsible drinking around a meal or in a culture of social culture, for example. So I believe people should obviously look at educating your children what responsible drinking is, per definition, and the best way is not teaching them, it is to show them what it actually is.
Thank you so much. Well, if this is connected with you on any level whatsoever, if any of those question marks are going in your brain, please, there is a number that you can call, a substance abuse hotline that is open 24 hours.
Great.
You can phone in anonymously, 0800 121314. Please phone that number if anything that we've spoken about today has raised alarm bells for you.
We'll have more with the doctor very shortly.
My feel-good breakfast show.
Yeah, Dr. Green is here, cleaning up the
Dr.
tables.
Dreamy Green.
Cleaning up the tables and rounding the empties. Listen, we've got a caller on the line. Good morning to you, Anonymous.
Good morning.
Thank you so
Morning.
much
Good
for your
morning.
call. What is your question?
I just want to find out, my son has been in recovery for 4 years. He's been clean and sober for 4 years.
Right.
My husband is, he's a drinker, a heavy drinker. Unfortunately, he owns his own company. Now, you know, he wants to stop. Well, I hope he does. And I want to know, is it possible to get clean without actually having to go to rehab?
Great question.
Such
is
a
it
lovely
possible to
question,
get clean
yeah.
without going to
Yeah.
rehab?
It would
Yeah.
depend on the circumstances. You must remember that the process of actually withdrawing someone who's been using alcohol chronically involves certain effects on the autonomic nervous system, on the body's absorption, on your appetite, on your liver, your pancreas, all that. So you do suffer from mood fluctuations, from aggressive outbursts, from where people become so desperate, and it's really painful for
desperation,
family
yeah.
members to actually witness that. So the reason why we often ask and request that people are taken out of their circumstance is to obviously give them a chance to also still their mind as to why they started drinking in the first place. If there are stresses that aren't going to disappear overnight, we often have to remove someone from the stressor, work on the problem and the withdrawal
Psychological
first,
and
then
physical,
and
yeah.
then implement ways of reintroducing them back into the system systematically with mechanisms in place. But the medical and physical withdrawal of alcohol addiction is something that is really terrible to witness as a family member, as a child, as a parent, for example, as well. So that is why, obviously, we need to have them. And then medical complications like heart dysrhythmias and things that can occur as well, being harmful and can injure yourself. And the mood fluctuations are so hectic in terms of that desperation that some people feel like killing themselves when they're withdrawing.
So you would advise that rehab is the best way to go?
Rehab, and especially that initial phase, is something that needs to be done. A lot of people, no one willfully becomes addicted to anything. So they think they can come off it quite easily, like smoking, drinking, etc. And often it proves to be harder than what it seems.
If I can put on Anonymous's hat for a moment. Anonymous, thank you so much. I'm going to have to ask a question here. How, as the family, do we then intervene? When and how do we go about that? we're dealing with presumably a breadwinner here who is sitting at the heart of that family. How do you, as the
Correct.
rest of the family, even set against having a son that's gone through that process, how
Sure.
do you then broach that with the person who you can see clearly has a problem?
When you see someone hurting not only themselves, but the rest of the family unit and even the community and where they're working, that place as well, you are forced to intervene. I mean, but that means obviously stepping up to the plate and giving someone an ultimatum, saying, you have intentions to stop your habits, change your behavior around this specific addiction. Are you willing to do it? This is the ultimatum. If you don't do it by that date, we are leaving, or you are leaving. That often is something really hard for people to do, but we have to change. You sometimes have to kick someone out of the nest to get them to actually be actively, warned. So
We've got a caller on the line. Graham is on the line. Good morning, Graham.
How are you, doctor?
Very, very well. I wish I
Morning,
was a
Graham.
doctor, but yeah, Dr.
All
Green
right,
is here.
I've
What
got
is
a
your question?
problem, man. One of my friends is a bad drinker, and I want to get it stopped. What can I do about it?
Okay, so I think if you really care about him, I think the first thing that he needs to do is you need to sit and spend some time with him, saying, as a concerned friend, I've noticed that you are using alcohol to compensate for something. You're using it as a crutch and a pillar. I'm with you. I know what you're doing all the time and so forth. But we also need to look at the issue of what the help is available, where he is and where he is.
Yes.
If you don't voluntarily admit yourself for help in terms of an addiction, it's very difficult to get help. He needs to acknowledge first that he has a problem, and then can you only move forward in terms of rehab, etc. If there's psychotic behavior where he's a danger to people around him and a danger to himself in terms of physical harm, then certainly one could get someone certified initially, admitted and so forth. But we want, ideally, someone that voluntarily admits themselves to get into a program. And for you, it would mean calling the helpline that we've suggested earlier on as a friend. They will give you resources and help you with the process to take you through step by step where you are and where you're living to actually move through this process.
Thanks so much, Dr. Green. And of course, Graham, if you are looking for that helpline, it is 0800 12 13 14. I'll say it again, 0800 12 13 14. Do give them a call. Dr. Green, invaluable words,
Yeah,
inspiring
very
and
wise,
insightful.
yeah.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.